We're here for a match with Boros Burn with Zero Bell Striker. Trying a few more matches hopefully with the card. Also keeping an eye on when we prefer to have Eidolon versus not in a matchup. Sand's pretty good in the opening. One drop creature into various different burn spells. Searing Blaze if our opponent happens to have a 1-drop. So seems like a pretty good opening hand overall. So this is still doing some Mana Traders qualifying, although once again we're not going to be playing in the event this weekend, as one, we're both not qualified, and number two, this is my one-year anniversary, so other things will be needing to be attended to this weekend. So okay, my opponent leads on Marsh Flats Go. They draw another land, which is nice. I'm just going to attack with Swift Spear here. We could like play Lightning Helix just to get some more damage, but I think what we're going to do is do this. Use our mana, get our spells out of our hand. Yes, it doesn't get as much damage, but we're not playing to cast next turn should our opponent, you know, not have anything of relevance here. And Marsh Flats is a very odd opening, so Triome. No real idea what this is at the moment. Probably Zoo, I would have to guess. Okay, never mind. Some weird rebirth okay, well, just plays Grief, pitching Grief. That really doesn't tell me anything. Maybe some Reanimator variant? I really have no idea what's going on right now. Okay, so they are a Reanimator variant. Got it. With Gristlebrand. And Atraxa. Okay. So if they have a reanimation spell here, obviously we're in a lot of trouble. Let's play this and pass. Fun part is Sanctifier is actually pretty reasonable against them if we can resolve it, because most of their threats are black. Last turn, opponent knows our last card in hand is a Searing Blaze, but once again, if they ever draw Persist or anything, we're just in a world of trouble. So, or third land even is pretty bad because Faithful Mending, I think, buys them an extra turn. Alright, well, this is a spot where Eidolon is pretty decent overall, although I guess Solitude kind of kills it, but Leyline Binding, sure. Opponent's gonna go. If they have a plains to fetch, they can go to 1, flash back Faithful Mending, buy themselves a turn. You have a Solitude on top, they go to 1. So what is their split on reanimation spells? Because I guess they have to have Unburial Rites or Priest of the Forgotten Gods, because Persist doesn't get back Atraxa or Gristlebrand. Groa's Vengeance would, and would also gain them a good chunk of life. Interesting timing. Yeah, that doesn't help the problem of you're still dead. Alright, so some type of weird 4-color Reanimator. So these Rolling Vortex can punish their, potentially punish their free spells, as well as being relevant against Atraxa and Gristlebrand to keep them from gaining life. Searing Blaze is pretty middling. Eidolon also, especially on the draw, looks like it's going to be pretty middling. So it may just be like these 6 out, these 6 in. Obviously, Sanctifier is still vulnerable to things like Leyline Binding and Solitude, but this hand is pretty middling. Double Vortex with double Rift Bolt's kind of awkward. I think we have to mulligan. This hand's painful, but I think reasonable. So just from a pure damage standpoint, probably want to hold on to Boros Charm. From a curve out standpoint, I think we'll just put back one of the Rift Bolts. That leads on. This hand's going to be very painful. The only downside for our opponent is this is like most of their resources. So suspend Rift Bolt, cast Lava Spike, pass. Hope they don't have another Ephemerate, I guess. So if you have an ephemerate, you pretty much gotta blink this. Let's play the card that takes down life totals as we're playing all pain lands. Seems like a good idea, right? Okay, just pass. Suspect we'll see like a ley line binding or something here. Nothing. Okay. Bolt the Grief, Boros Charm their face, let them take the other Boros Charm. And then hope we draw wall off the top. I think we're going to end up dying to our own lands. Prismatic Ending. Mm-hmm. Heck of a game. I think our opponent decided that their best strategy was to just let us die to our own whirling vortex. It may very well work. Interesting. Pulling out that fetch land was actually a mistake. So that means I can't top deck a Inspiring Vantage for the win. And if they have Solitude here, we're just dead, so... Select play first. It's again similar problem. This hand's okay. Put back. Idle in here. Gotta fetch Sacred Founder here because of Sanctifier. Opponent has Boros Vengeance. Good to know about. Double Grows. Apparently I don't want that one. Okay. Okay, Indulgence, sure. Gotta be mindful of Faithful Mending here, so I don't want to like tap out for Bolt. That's a pretty good one. Okay. Once again, get to use all of our mana here. Cycle out Ragam Drown. So they have all 5 colors in their deck. Could easily have Solitude here, I suppose. But if they tap out for Solitude, then they're just dead. Alright, and our opponent concedes. Nice to steal our first match here. Back for a second match here. Play is always nice. This hand's very land heavy, but I think for science, with Zergo in the hand, we're going to try it. Okay, so Murktide. Alright, well, that's a pretty good opener. See if our okay, our opponent is just F6, sure. Not sure why when you're playing a deck like, I guess they could technically be Breach too. Goes in, Eidolon out. Sanctifier, I used to be a believer about bringing it in, but once again, after watching Mengu with the matchup, just don't bring it in. Now, that said, if our opponent ends up being on Breach, it becomes a reevaluation because it does exile a good portion of their graveyard. Eidolon, generally Eidolon's very good against Izzet spell-based decks, but the problem is, especially on the draw, if you get behind, Eidolon is very much a liability. So, I wouldn't say this is a matchup where you don't want Eidolon, but I would say this is a matchup where Eidolon is play draw dependent. And once again, that was also one of Burn's better openers. One of the reasons to add something like Zergo or Ragavan or Vexing Devil or Nakadal or, you know, Reinforced Ronin or any of those other middling 1-drops beyond Guide and Swift Spear is to exploit the amount of openers that you have that are good. So, and our opponent was very much either salty or just they just F6'd literally. So, and Burn does have those openers where the deck feels close to unbeatable, though those openers don't beat as many decks as they used to. Once again, we're still not certain if our opponent is on Murktide or Breach. Most likely Murktide, but we'll have a better idea after this game. This hand is pretty reasonable. We have one more land than I ideally like, but we have one drop, either Bolt or Zergo, depending on what their turn one looks like. So, still don't know, because Bobble could be either deck still. I mean, we have to play Zergo into it. We have nothing else to, you know, if they have Boulder Heat, it's whatever. Our only other line is to pass with Bold up and maybe they dash a Monkey or try to connive a Leisure Shredder here. So I think our two lines are Jam Eidolon and what might be Counterspell, or play Bloodstained Mire, pass. I figure into this much open mana, you're just supposed to constrain what they're doing, so no sense in jamming a spell into it. And if they try to dash a Monkey, we might be able to get them a little bit. Once again, you could just jam Eidolon, but with Boros Charm and Bolt, we're going to be able to cast something on with this mana. So, and if they pierce it, it's whatever. Swizzle Spear will draw any bolts or anything, so. Continue to pass. Subtlety. Okay. So you took 2 to take 3 to take 4. Okay. We jam Eidolon. If they subtlety it, I'm kind of fine. So. Opponent once again kind of getting got by MTGO stuff. Okay, they have another subtlety, which they shouldn't have auto passed. But because this could be on the bottom of our library now instead of in play. No reason to play anything again or attack. Just constrain their mana. If they have another subtlety, fine. I think it's highly unlikely that they have a third copy of subtlety. Okay, so they take 2. Okay, sure. Hopefully we'll draw another spell. Okay. So you're going to take 2 regardless. Unless you're playing Cryptic Command on your deck, which I don't think you are. Alright, nice ending game against Murktide. So we're here for a quick wrap with this video. Only played 2 matches, obviously one against some type of hybrid reanimator with Corro's Vengeance trying to use Atraxa. Got a lot of people trying out new cards. And the other one against a Murktide player that didn't really seem like they had the best draws in the world. I think a couple things with Burn right now. Burn is not a tier 1 deck. It has a lot of close or rough matchups. The increasing presence of amulets. Murktide's a rough matchup. Supposedly Creativity and Scam are good matchups from players that play those decks. That said, they do have Creativity and Urkon, or the Scam openings are difficult for Burn to manage. And the meta is fairly open right now, other than obviously the presence of Murktide being a 10 or 12% deck. Burn has a close matchup in that. Really, and ironically, I've been playing this entire thing with a 12-card sideboard. I'm great. The card that was supposed to be in the sideboard was Exquisite Firecraft. So I actually beat Murktide without my sideboard card for it. That's hilarious. But if you're looking for a deck or a starting point for Burn, I really think this is kind of the starting point I would see. We monkeyed around, pun intended, with Ragavan. Ragavan is definitely superior to Zurgo. I'm not going to deny that. Actually, there are some situations where Zurgo is a little bit better because of the 2 toughness. It doesn't die to random one power creatures, which there aren't a ton in the format, but there are stuff like Young Wolf and such that Zurgo can attack into. That said, Ragavan can actually block, and obviously Ragavan has the higher upside card. But Zurgo, much cheaper, much more affordable for a typical Burn player budget. I think this fulfills what we're looking for as a 1-drop good. You're not having to recast it every turn with legendary Reinforced Ronin. You're not returning a land to your hand. You're not really skewering your mana base to play it. It does have a haste option, albeit with a drawback. Although, against a deck with a bunch of prismatic endings and sorcery speed removal, it's not terrible. And the other thing, Eidolon is certainly the topic currently among Burn players. My thought process with Eidolon goes one of 2 ways. If you're increasing the amount of creatures you're putting in your deck, with Zurgo or Ragavan, which there was a couple lists this past weekend that played like a 1 of Ragavan as a 9th 1-drop. The more removal spell or the more creatures your opponents have to remove, the more Eidolon's effectiveness goes up, because there's less, you know, if you have one drop on one and into an Eidolon, your opponent has to decide which one of those creatures has to die if they only have one removal spell in hand. You know, that said, it does increase your vulnerability to things like Fury, but I think any creature at this point will do that. Burn is nicely positioned where Fury is annoying, but you can still overcome it with actual burn spells. But that said, you know, Eidolon, a lot of people talking about because of Solitude or Fury or Leyline Binding that you really should be moving away from Eidolon. I really think if you want more 1-drops to speed your deck up and you're going to be playing something like a Zerga or a Ragavan, leaving Eidolon in your deck just makes sense. It's another creature they have to deal with. It's another thing they have to account for. And the alternatives are pretty bad. I mean, your alternatives are things like Flame Rift or Skullcrack or Roiling Vortex in the main, or, you know, just playing other burn spells, which, yes, it theoretically blanks Leyline Binding and this, that, and the other thing, but Vortex is still vulnerable to Leyline Binding. So are you really gaining a whole lot by moving Vortex to the main? You can play Bump in the Night, but once again, that's kind of skewering your mana base. So lots of things going on with Burn. I do think stock Burn with a slight twist of either a Zergo or a Ragavan as a couple of. This is probably about where I would be with a list if I were trying to prep for a big event with Burn. As I'd start from here. To me, it's well balanced. Sanctifier could be a 2-of, but man, the matchups that you really want it, it's really good. Reanimator, Dredge, Breach, Scam. It's really hard to have that high of an impact card sitting on the sidelines. And what are you gonna replace it with? Like more copies of Roiling Vortex, more copies of Firecraft. You know, Burn does not have a lot of high impact sideboard cards, and in the matchups that Sanctifier is good in, it's pretty good. So, and Vortex obviously checks out. Firecraft I just like having access to because there's so many blue decks, Murktide and other things. I'm willing to lose to Amulet. I don't think Burn can skewer itself, or can skewer itself, can change itself enough to where Amulet's a good matchup. I just don't. So I'm not even considering trying to fix the Amulet matchup. As far as everything else, I think this sideboard gives you game against everything. And I'm probably going to be working off of this list to try to get a sideboard guide together. I did one on Reddit in January as kind of a starting point, and we're definitely going to get back into doing sideboard guides again, at least every other month, I think, in some form or other. But anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hope to see you for our next video.